He is, by almost any measure, the greatest snooker player who has ever lived. 7 world titles, more records than anyone in the history of the sport, some of which may never be broken. They call him the Rocket because he plays the game faster and more beautifully than any human being ever has. At 50 years old, he is still doing things at the table that leave grown professionals shaking their heads. Ronnie O'Sullivan is a genius. And genius, in his case, was carved out of pain almost no one could survive. Because rewind to when Ronnie was just 16, a boy the whole snooker world had just discovered, turning professional on top of the world. That very same period, his life detonated. His father, the man who drove him to every tournament, who believed in him more than anyone, was arrested and then convicted of murder and sent to prison for life. When young Ronnie was told the news, he didn't just cry, he screamed and he collapsed. Because the story of the greatest player of all time is not really a story about snooker. It's about a teenager who lost both of his parents to prison, was left to raise his little sister, and then spent the next 30 years fighting demons that nearly destroyed the very gift that made him famous. And how, somehow, at 50, he is still standing. Stay with me, this one is heavier than you think. Before we go back to the start, subscribe if you like the stories behind the legends. First, understand what kind of talent we're talking about. Ronnie O'Sullivan was a prodigy of the rarest kind. He made his first maximum break a perfect 147, the hardest single feat in the sport as a teenager. And he did it with a speed nobody had ever seen. He turned professional at 16 and immediately started winning. Over his career, he would rack up more ranking titles than any player in history, a record number of century breaks, and 7 world championships. Keep that word in mind, genius. Because from the outside, it looked effortless, like the game came easy to him. The truth was the exact opposite. Every bit of that brilliance was being produced by a young man whose whole world had just fallen apart. In 1992, the same year, a teenage Ronnie was launching his professional career. His father, Ronnie O'Sullivan Sr., was involved in a fatal fight in a London nightclub. A man was stabbed and killed. Ronnie's father was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. He would end up serving 18 years. For a 16-year-old, this was more than a scandal. His dad wasn't just his father, he was his biggest supporter, the engine behind his dream. Remember that Bond, the father who believed in him? One day he was ringside cheering his son on. The next, he was behind bars for the rest of what looked like Ronnie's childhood. And the nightmare wasn't finished. Because a few years later, when Ronnie was around 19, his mother was also sent to prison, given a sentence for tax evasion. And just like that, both of his parents were gone at the same time. Ronnie, barely an adult, suddenly found himself responsible for his little sister, Danielle, who was only 8 years old. Think about that. He's a teenager, supposedly living the dream as a rising sports star, and instead he's running a household, raising a child, with his father in prison for murder and his mother locked away too. The pressure that would flatten most people was landing on a kid who was, at the exact same time, expected to go out and be a world-beating champion in front of television cameras. Something, inevitably, had to give, and what gave was Ronnie himself. For years, behind the trophies, he was fighting a brutal, private war. He has been remarkably open about it. Depression that swallowed him whole, and a slide into drink and drugs as a way to numb it. He has described hating the very game that made him famous, feeling trapped by it, playing while he was falling apart inside. This is the part the highlight reels never show. The most naturally gifted player in the history of snooker spent large stretches of his career not enjoying his genius, but drowning underneath it, winning world titles while privately wondering what any of it was for. More than once, Ronnie came to the edge of throwing it all away. He walked away from the sport at times. He talked openly about quitting, about the emptiness, about the sense that his talent was a burden as much as a blessing. For a player like him, the danger was never another opponent. Nobody could beat him at his best. The danger was always himself, his own mind, his own habits, the weight of everything he'd carried since he was 16. And for a while, It genuinely looked like the greatest talent the game had ever produced might destroy himself before he was ever truly at peace. But he didn't. Slowly, Ronnie found things that pulled him back from the edge. He got help working with a sports psychiatrist to understand and manage his own mind. He got sober. And, almost strangely, he found a lifeline in something simple: running. Long, hard runs that cleared his head and gave him a discipline and a calm he'd never had. He learned that he couldn't make the demons vanish, but he could learn to live alongside them, one day at a time. And with that fragile, hard-won balance, the snooker didn't just survive, it got better. So here is the real story of Ronnie O'Sullivan. Remember how we started the genius, the effortless brilliance. And remember the father who believed in him, torn away when he was 16. Everything Ronnie built, he built while carrying that. In 2022, at 46, he won his 7th world title, becoming the oldest world champion in the modern era. And even now, at 50, he is still producing magic at the table that younger players can only dream of. His greatness was never really about talent. Plenty of people have talent. It was about surviving. About taking the worst thing that can happen to a child and, somehow, not letting it win. The Rocket's true record isn't 7 world titles. It's that he is still here, at all, still standing, still fighting, still playing the game he once thought would break him. So did you know what was hiding behind that genius? Tell me in the comments. And subscribe, because next time we go behind the curtain on another legend, the world only thinks it knows. And if any of this hit home, you're not alone. And help is out there.